With Liquor Barn, you can shop your favorite bourbon, that perfect bottle of wine, or discover something new. To place an order for pickup or delivery, download the Liquor Barn app, visit liquorbarn.com, or call your nearest Liquor Barn location. Follow us on social media and subscribe to our email list for all the latest news on products, promotions, and events. Liquor Barn, where Kentuckians go to celebrate life. Cheers!
Welcome to the Bourbon Life Podcast, your source for all things bourbon. Join your hosts, Mark and Matt, as they drink and review bourbons, share news about upcoming events, interview the who's who in the bourbon world, and, most importantly, bring you along for the fun of living the bourbon life. Now, here's your hosts, Mark and Matt.
All right, everybody, welcome back for another episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me here live tonight in the Bourbon Life Studios, it's my good friend, my bourbon drinking buddy, Matt. Matt, how you doing out there?
Hey, Mark, I am doing so good out here. It's nice to be back here in the Bourbon Life Studios for another exciting episode of the podcast. How are you doing in Mission Control in there?
I'm doing great in here, man. Got it all locked down, ready to roll, ready to have a great episode. I'm looking forward to this one, man. This is always a fun guest.
Absolutely.
I love this guy, man. We have a lot of good conversations together and spend time together once in a while. So I'm happy to get him back on the show. It's going to be a lot of fun. But I do want to thank all of our sponsors. Of course, we appreciate everything that our sponsors do for us. We could not do this show without their help. So thank you all for all of your support and everything that you do for us. Matt, with that said, man, we can jump right into it and let's get to the show. If you want to tell everybody who we have with us tonight, that'd be great.
Let's do it. He was on episode 78, if you can remember back then, in August of 2021. And we are so fortunate and so happy to bring him back. He is the president of the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, Randy Prossi. Randy, welcome back to the Bourbon Life Podcast.
It is so cool to be back, and I can't believe it's been that long. I mean, I absolutely remember that conversation. It just, so much has happened, and so many good things have transpired. But it's cool that you brought me back into your world.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, we appreciate it. Randy, it's funny because I've seen you several times since then, obviously, and I always enjoy getting to spend time with you and hang out and see you at different events and things. It's always fun, always personable, always a great conversation, man. But to have you back on the show, it is a lot of fun. And like I was talking to Matt the other day, and or we had Sam Lacey on the show last week, and we were talking about having you on. And I was like, yeah, we just had him on last year. And Matt was like, no, I don't think so. And I'm like, I started looking back in the notes. I'm like, man, that was almost 2 years ago now.
And the crazy thing about that was when we were on together, the first of the newly revisioned festivals had yet to even happen. I was talking almost entirely conceptual and what we're going to do and why we're doing what we're doing. And now we've had 2021, 2022's under our belt, and now 2023 is but 73 days away now that I'm counting, but I am.
Yeah, not that you're counting, right?
Yeah.
No doubt. Well, we've got some great things poured up tonight too. And these are ones we've actually visited before, but we're going to go back and revisit them because it's going to be fun. And you guys do a lot of barrel picks, which is great. And we could talk about that here in just a little bit. But the first one we're going to be drinking on tonight, this is the Elijah Craig Small Batch. This was a pick from the 2021 Bourbon Festival. This one comes in at 94 proof. Let's see. Rick House doesn't say if it's a Deatsville or just there on campus. People freak out about the Deatsville picks. I mean, that's like anything from Deatsville's got to be great. So I was just looking at that. But yeah, 94 proofer. The Elijah Craig.
I think it was.
Okay.
And the really unfortunate thing about this pick, and I remember going out for lunch with Connor after we did the pick, and he laid it on me that effective May 1 of 2021, they were going to be going to the barrel proof, and so our 94 proof was one of the last, if not the last, at 94 before they unveiled. So I'm like, why didn't we just wait? Let's wait.
Yeah, right.
And make sure it doesn't come out until after May 1. But so that might actually, this is one of the last ones at 94, and it's still really a good one.
Yeah, it
I
is.
know
And
you're
for,
an Elijah Craig fan, so
you know, we can talk about that too here in just a few minutes, because that's a great story. But this one comes in. This is 78% corn. I'm looking at my notes. I should have this committed to memory. But 78% corn, 10% rye, 12% malted barley, and the small batch is a blend. Usually, well, this is a barrel pick, but the small batch itself usually a blend between 8 and 12 years. So I don't know. There's no age on this one, Randy. I don't know. I mean, this was 2 years ago, so I don't know if you remember what the age on this particular barrel was. Doesn't matter, but it's Elijah Craig. You can't go wrong with it, right?
right. I could
So
do a
Matt,
little digging, and I'd leave camera for a minute and hear some bottles clanking around. And I've got the 100 ml lab bottle here somewhere in the in my office that I could pull up. But I don't think you want that. That doesn't make for good entertainment.
yeah, Randy's you're doing QC there in your office, man. You keep your own lab samples. That's awesome. So Matt,
I've got one of every pick that we've ever done, and
oh
so it's up there on the shelf.
yeah,
Oh, yeah,
There-
yeah.
Wow, that's quite
that's one of every. But I don't know that we need to know that badly tonight. What exactly?
no. I think we're gonna be okay here, Matt. What are you picking up in terms of the nose on this one, man?
It's got a real mature nose to it. Makes me think probably somewhere in that 8 to 12, we might be on the little older side
Older?
of things.
Yeah.
There's a good amount of oak, some leather in there. I also pick up like a nice dusty cocoa powder,
Okay.
like a little bit of a cocoa type note, a little bit of butterscotch as well. So kind of some sweet and savory notes on the nose as well. Just a really, really solid nose. Kind of everything you come to expect from this. You don't get not as much of the cherry, I think, that you would get on some of the barrel proof Elijah Craigs, but just really lovely.
Yeah, that's a good point, Matt. That's the one thing because for me, obviously, and I think a lot of people, those Elijah Craig barrel proofs, you get that cherry just pops right out pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's just a light hint to that, but I almost get more like an orange kind of citrusy aroma on this one for some reason. But the leather, like you said, that was the first thing I noticed, which made me think, yeah, this may be a little bit of an older barrel, than the 8-year-old. It could be closer to that 12-year mark. Like you said, Matt, oak comes through, but you don't get that proof, obviously, because it's not the barrel proof. You're at 94 proof, but that doesn't diminish the nose on it at all. It's just you don't get that alcohol like you would on a barrel proof. But other than that, you get all those notes. The cherry's a little subdued, like Matt said, but other than that, yeah, I mean, you just can't go wrong with this. Randy, what about you? You got anything you want to
No,
throw in there?
and I was literally just and Matt said that dusty, that cocoa, and that stuck in my head now because I don't know, I've never known how to describe that, but it literally is almost like taking a spoon into the cocoa and putting it on there. It's that kind of like right there, intense. No, I never thought of that. I never picked up on that before, but I'm the first to admit that I am not the expert that everyone expects that I should be, given what I do for a living.
Oh.
So I'm still very big on the power of suggestion, which is why I don't like to go first, because I know that when you say certain things, you mentioned that like the citrusy, the orange, that comes out as well. But quite frankly, that's one of those things that I file away in my memory, so the next time I'm going to enjoy it, it pops up for me. So I appreciate that. But the cocoa, definitely.
Yeah, and that's why I keep Matt around.
That's right. He actually plugged in my microphone tonight. So
I did.
And there's a difference between dusty cocoa and like the dark chocolate. I mean, there's definitely, because I pick up on chocolate easy. I'm a chocolate and cherry, fig. I mean, I pick up on the fruities and the chocolates very easily because I'm looking for them. But that cocoa is a whole different experience, and the people following along, that they know what I mean, I think.
Yeah. Those older people like us that have actually taken that spoon and dipped it into a can of cocoa and know that experience. I don't know that kids do that anymore these days, So, but yeah, no doubt. So Randy, let's talk about you. We had you on the show back on episode, 78. So 2 years ago. So I think it'd be fun if we go back and kind of revisit just a little bit about who you are, what your background is, and how it is that you took that long journey to become the president of the Kentucky Bourbon Festival.
Well, I won't give you the entire chapter by chapter, but odd thing, I grew up on a family dairy farm, so a lot of 7-day a week. Cows don't take vacations, weekends, those kind of things. So I think that lent itself well to what I'm doing now in the festival world, because it is a lot of evenings, it is a lot of weekends, it is vacation means I'm taking work with me just to make sure that I kind of keep things going. So I've always appreciated that work ethic. But I mean, I've done everything from a small little Founders Day street festival with the flea market and a beer garden and a main stage to the pinnacle of my career as a farm boy was taking over the reins of the Wisconsin State Fair 20 years ago now already, unbelievably. Because I went to the state fair as a kid. I showed cattle at the fair. I slept on the straw bales and kind of had that experience. So when I came in with the opportunity to take that over and save one of, it was Wisconsin's, fabled institutions, really. I never took a day for granted when I got to do that. And then fast forward, kind of get me into Kentucky. I was recruited to come in and take over all the operations for the annual Kentucky Derby. And, believe it or not, when people say, what do you do the rest of the year? That is what I did the rest of the year. I guarantee you people, right, next year is the 150th Kentucky Derby.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
know they started planning that before the 149th ran, because it is just that kind of a project. And, I've done some craft beer festivals, both as a volunteer who just loves craft beer and loves that experience, putting people together where they can sample and maybe discover some new beers. And that's really kind of the heart of what I brought into with the Bourbon Festival, is not just making sure that the brands and the and the SKUs that you would like to buy all the time as your go-to in the store, but are involved, but also hopefully everybody comes to the festival will discover something new and be able to take it home and try it and get other people excited about it. So that's kind of Randy in the 34-year career in 60 seconds or less.
Yeah. And then you came in with the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. Which year? When did you come in?
I came in after the 2019 festival.
Okay.
The laws changed favorably for everyone, the distilleries, for me as the event producer, and ultimately for the bourbon enthusiast, because laws changed to allow direct sampling from the distillery to the consumer. And then last year, 2022, the laws changed one more step, which was allowing the DSP distilleries to actually sell bottles directly to consumer from the Bourbon Festival. And that really, truly differentiates us from every other spirits festival. Even though you can sample at craft beer festivals, you can't buy the beer and take it home with you. So that's something that's really exciting as a consumer. But that people try to look, I mean, and I'm very humbled by this, but people look at me as, wow, look what you've done in the last 3 or 4 years. Well, all I did really was learn how to exploit the favorable laws
Right.
in Kentucky to the max, and so no, that's kind of really where we are. 2019, the festival before me had 11 distilleries and no bourbon at the Bourbon Festival. You had to go off site to other different
Oh, wow.
locations. Skipped 2020, the pandemic year, fast forward through that. 21,
Right.
we had 34 distilleries.
Mhm.
18 of them were craft. First time the craft distilleries were ever included in this festival. Last year we grew to 48, and this year we've got 56 of Kentucky distilleries
Wow.
available for people to come and enjoy. And it's just to see that growth and the support from all angles actually has been very, very humbling for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it says a lot about the team and the people that are involved with it. I mean, you're involved with it. Steve's involved with it. David Mandel, the mayor of Bardstown.
The unelected mayor. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
The unofficial unelected mayor of Bardstown, Dave Mandel. But just a great group of people. Stacy's with you guys now as well, Stacy Pritchard. And you just got a wonderful group of people, and you've elevated this event to something that is the premier bourbon event out there. And I think
Thank you.
people realize that people want to be a part of that and want to experience that, but the distilleries and the brands know that they need to be a part of that to make their name known as well. So I mean, I think what you guys have done and been able to achieve, and really, I mean, it's a short period of time, in the
Right.
grand scheme of the bourbon, because is this the 32nd year? Is that right?
32nd year,
Yeah.
technically the third year of sampling and now sales.
Right.
Mhm.
Mark, we had to, and the first time I ever heard anybody actually say that was when you and I were having dinner that night in Lexington. That kind of started this whole discussion about you all being the featured partner
Yeah.
for this year. But we had to change, and there was some bad feelings in the
Right.
local community But for the most part, they weren't really bourbon enthusiasts. You know, they were the local town folk who really loved the festival and the festivities and the ability for the family to come out and do things. But while that was important, we had distilleries that were, on the other hand, saying, when you all started this, there was no other show, and now there's whiskey festivals and things all
Right.
over the world, and
Right.
we were no longer relevant. We no longer aligned with their brand. So what we did was out of necessity for survival, not because, oh, isn't this a novel idea? Let's sample and sell. It was, we had to be this festival, or the distilleries were losing interest, and they were falling off one by one, year by
Sure.
year. But to their credit, I always give credit where it's due. Every single one of them said, if you are able to produce this festival that you're describing, we will absolutely be there as a partner. And I use Wes Henderson as the one example. My very first KDA meeting, it was Zoom because it was right in May of 2020, the early months of the pandemic. And so I had the Zoom screen with 40 different faces that I'd never met looking at me, and they introduced me to talk about the vision for the festival. And Wes Henderson stopped the meeting and said, Randy, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but from someone who was there and withdrew back in 2013, if you are able to do even 25% of what you just said you're going to do, count Angel's Envy back in. And true to his word, they've been back in the last 3 years. So, and that has played out over and over again with Brown-Forman and the Sazerac folks and everything. So again, all we're doing is giving the distilleries the environment that they need. But it happens to also coincide with what the consumers want. The enthusiasts want the same thing that distilleries want, which is that direct sips to lips opportunity. Now that you add bottle sales in, wow, I mean, that is a really cool environment.
Yeah. And speaking of the bottle sales, I mean, and those are the barrel picks that you guys are doing. You did those in 21, obviously, because we're drinking 3 of those. You did those also last year in 22. And you're doing them again this year in 23. How many different barrel picks are you guys going to be doing for this year's festival?
Well, and the cool thing was 2021, we started it with Rob and Bill Samuels donating a barrel. I didn't know what a barrel pick was, being fully transparent. I've heard people buzzing about it. I see in the stores barrel picks. So Rob and Bill loved the new direction of the festival, and they donated a barrel. And after that, I kept asking, I asked Beam, you know, we got a Knob Creek barrel. I asked Heaven Hill and Elijah Craig barrel. I got a Bullet barrel. I just kept asking. Rabbit Hole, the very first single barrel they ever did was with the Bourbon Festival. So we had 10 we had 10 that first year. Last year we came back and we had 20. We threw in like a Peerless, and we threw in a couple of others. Chicken Cock, the very first Chicken Cock single barrel since 1855 when they started. Greg Snyder and I put that together. So that was a little overkill. And you know, we had a bottle shop at the festival. So if you wanted to come in and buy a bottle, you stood in the same long line and you went and bought any number of bottles that you wanted from one retailer. This year, ultimately, our goal all along has been to put the distillery and the consumer together. So this year, all of the DSP partners that are doing single barrels are selling their bottles directly through their location. So if you come in,
nice.
If you want an Elijah Craig barrel, you go to Heaven Hill. If you want a Four Roses single barrel, you're going to go talk to Four Roses directly. So the merchant middleman, so to speak, is out of it. And so now I think we're up to 12. We just confirmed last week that Angel's Envy is going to be doing their first barrel pick with us. I mean, not their first ever, but our first with them.
Okay.
And then I think this afternoon we got Nulu, you know, so we're going to Prohibition to talk to Chase next week about another hopefully killer barrel with them. So we should be about 12 to 14, but again, directly from the distillery. So I'm really looking forward to how that's going to work when people come in the gate.
Yeah, you know, because last year I stood in line for a while and then got up there and unfortunately didn't get the bottles that I was after. But that's great that you guys have switched that up so people can go directly to the tents to get those directly from the distillers themselves. And I do know that you have an Elijah Craig barrel proof pick this year that is barrel proof and that is going to be a true banger.
How would you know that?
Well, it just so happens you guys graciously invited me to come along for that pick, and we picked a great barrel, and that one was the Deatsville barrel, which, you know, because we did it blind, nobody knew, right? So we picked, and we ended up choosing that barrel, which was great. And it was the first time, Randy, that I picked a barrel and that barrel actually won. So
Well,
all the barrel.
if you
Go
recall,
ahead.
you were on the bubble, and I jumped in. I switched my vote to back you.
Yeah. Right. Well, I appreciate that very much. But anytime that the Bourbon Life's done a pick, Matt and Chad or Matt and Phil or they gang up against me, and I always lose. So that's the first one that I've done that everybody else, we finally got it convinced that my barrel's going to win. So
It's just because I slide those other guys a $10 bill under
no,
the table.
okay.
They switch their votes
on.
over.
Pile on poor Mark.
That's all right. Well, speaking of the Elijah Craig, let's jump back to this small batch, Matt. What did you pick up in terms of the palate and the finish on this one?
It's got a nice sweet bite right at the front of the palate, like a sweet, crisp brittle. Kind of
Okay.
is sort of what I'm picking up right on the front of the palate. And then Mark, those oranges that you were talking about. I think there's some citrus, a little bit of
Yep.
creamy, kind of like orange creamsicle as it moves further back in the palate. Then a nice warm, spicy kind of
Yep.
cinnamon, little peppercorn finish. I'm always amazed at these Elijah Craig picks at 94 proof. I always think they drink a good bit warmer and a lot more sophisticated than I think a lot of people would think from a 94 proof
Yep.
bottle of bourbon. And this one is certainly no different. It's absolutely delicious.
Yeah, I agree, Matt. That citrus comes through again on the palate to me. Like you said, though, that cinnamon, that finish, it was just like cinnamon that just kept going. And after I got that, the next thought was, man, this drink's not a lot hotter. I mean, this drink's higher than 94 proof. It's punching outside of its class, right?
Yeah.
So it definitely is. So I'm glad that you said that because I was thinking it the whole time. I'm like, this is crazy that this is a 94 proof bourbon because it's not drinking to me. This drink's like a 107 or something like that almost to me. Randy, what do you think?
Well, I always look at that, and Elijah Craig won a lot of awards and medals with the 94 proof. So
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
fact that everybody in the bourbon world, everybody is like consumed with the high proof. The higher the proof, that's what everybody's scrambling for. It's kind of like in the craft beer world, everybody wants to out hop the next person, and in
Right.
the whiskey world, everybody's trying to out proof. But no, I enjoy it. I mean, this actually, before I really started getting into it, Elijah Craig 94 was what I was buying and making my old fashions out of. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a great cocktail pour, and that's kind of where I started in my whole cocktailing experience was with that Elijah Craig, and the other one was the Maker's Mark, the 100.
Right.
But no, that Elijah Craig, that's a good one. It's good on its own, but it definitely livens up a cocktail.
Yeah, that's a good point too. And it's funny because it's only 10% rye, but there's still enough spice in this that really punches through. So I would say in an old fashioned that this would cut through that sweetness, and you'd still get that nice spicy, punchy cinnamon, flavor on the profile as well. So that's great.
And I
Great
use
barrel
it for
pick.
Manhattans because Manhattans tend to get a little too sweet for
Uh-huh.
me. And Steve
Okay.
Cooks and I have been kind of out like at River House and trying to do the different. So we're cutting back on some of the bitters and trying to play around with that. But this Elijah Craig kind of makes the Manhattan also not quite as syrupy sweet.
Gotcha. That's great. Well, Randy, I tell you what, we're at the end of round one, so let's just take a quick break, get a word from our sponsors, and we'll come back with more with Randy Prosty, the president of the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, in just a minute.
Three Chords line of whiskeys embody the spirit of creativity. The whiskey is a true collaboration between producer and composer Neil Giraldo and master blender distiller Ari Sussman. The Three Chord team of expert blenders, coopers, and sensory professionals have developed a multi-step process they called Perfectly Tuned Taste. This process begins by carefully selecting the finest bourbon and rye whiskeys from Kentucky, Tennessee, and Indiana, and then blending them together. Find out more about the whiskeys and distribution in your area at www.threechordbourbon.com.
From our good friends at The Stave comes Lexington's newest hot spot to meet up with friends, have fun, and eat some great food. District 7 Social is a social and beer hall, but it's a lot more than that. Located in Lexington's Distillery District, it's the home of Lexington's first duck pin bowling lanes, and it also features a self-serve beer wall. That's right, self-serve. And if you want more, they've got it. You can try one of their delicious cocktails from the bar or order some great German fusion food from their on-site eatery, Germanish. So what are you waiting for? Be seen, be social. District 7 Social. All right, everybody, welcome back for round 2 of the Bourbon Life podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me here live tonight in the Bourbon Life studios, otherwise known as my basement, it's my good friend, Matt. Matt, how you doing out there, man?
I'm doing great out here, Mark. It's I always say it, but it's so true. It's always fun to be back. We always sometimes we get tired or whatnot and
Yeah,
get to the show, and we always light up and enjoy it so much. And this one is certainly no exception to that. We're having such a great time, right?
no doubt. I think it speaks volumes for our guests as well, because when you showed up at the house tonight, we're both just kind of like, we both work today. It's July 3rd. It's the day before the 4th of July. Everybody had a long weekend and everything. Everybody's ready to have a day off, and we both work today. We're both just kind of dragging. And then we get on the show. It's like, yes, we're here. But I think it speaks volumes about our guest as well, because it's a great show. We're having a lot of fun. And this guy is just a great guy all around, and just really happy to have him on the show. But before we jump back into that, I do want to thank all of our sponsors. We appreciate everything they do for us. I just wanted to throw that out there to let you guys know how important they are to us. So we couldn't do this without their help. There's no question about that. So we appreciate everything that they do for us. And Matt, with that said, now, do you want to tell everybody who we have with us tonight?
Absolutely. Joining us back for the second round of the Bourbon Life podcast is Randy Prassey. He is the president of the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. Randy, welcome back for the second round of the Bourbon Life podcast.
Well, thanks for having me back for the next round.
Thanks for staying.
Yeah, exactly. We wouldn't have it any other way.
If I did something wrong, you'd just be looking at an empty seat.
It's like, gee, Randy, we're sorry you have to leave so early.
No, Mark, to your point, I worked all day today, and I'll be working on the 4th because we're 70 plus days out from
Right.
the festival. But I absolutely was looking forward to this time. Not to go into details on the podcast, but I needed this tonight. So
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you're able to make it. I know you got some things going on there with the festival, and you're always busy, always a busy man. No question about that. But I'm glad that we could be just a brief reprieve for you to kind of clear your head and just have some good conversation, and more importantly, some great drinks too, right?
Absolutely.
Speaking of which, let's talk about what we have poured up here for round 2. This is the Maker's Mark Private Selection. This was the pick as well from 2021. This has got a breakdown of, you know what? I hate to admit it, but I can't read all the different staves. I should have given Matt the bottle, but anyway, it is one of the private selections. And now you said, Randy, this was the first pick you guys did. Is that right?
Yeah, and I just thinking back, there were 2 of them. So I don't
Okay.
know that I want to make sure we're drinking the same one. There was the one that said the KY Bourbon Festival, and then there was one I think that maybe it said Bourbon Capital of the World or Justin's House of Bourbon. Which one's on that label?
This one says Kentucky Bourbon Fest, but it says Justin's House of Bourbon underneath it.
Okay.
So, and it's 108.9 proof. Yeah. So this is the bottle that we got. Your sticker's on there, the
Yeah.
green but yeah, the label actually says KY Bourbon Fest, Justin's House of Bourbon on it. So
Oh, we
Look,
lost
man,
Randy.
I was gonna say, we talked about losing our guest, and we actually lost our guest.
I'm here. So this one was 2 baked American.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
4 the seared French cuvee.
Right.
1 Maker's 46, 3 roasted French Mendiant, and then and we actually had 0 toasted French spice, which was
Okay.
one that we went heavier on the other one. So
On the other one.
yeah.
Okay.
I've got them both here. I'm pouring the right one too. So I'm
Well,
good.
great. Well,
Yeah.
thanks for reading those. I got my contacts in, but I just can't. It's the print's too small right now.
Yeah. We went real heavy on the French cuvee on that one. And funny thing was the one we did last year, we didn't do any. That was like the new thing,
Really?
the new stave that they were really pushing.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And we
Right.
didn't do it. We didn't do any of them last year, so it was totally bizarre. Very similar group of people. Steve Coombs was along.
Yeah.
Denny and Jane. The one that we did last year, Denny and Jane did it with us, and it was the first time in 14 months that they had gotten out and actually done one of these. So if you know them, they play off each other and they're like bickering, and
Yeah.
just what a wonderful experience. The whiskey, the liquid was amazing, and what we came out with was amazing, and we'll taste that. But just watching the 2 of them play off each other was
Yeah.
just really. And now, obviously they're gone. They moved on to another project, but it was one that I was really, really glad that I got to be a part of and witness.
Yeah, we've had them on the show together, and it's like they were in Denny's basement, I think, and it's just like watching a brother and a sister, the way that they pick at each other all the time. I can't imagine doing an actual barrel pick with them.
And they're like that anywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
I run into them at Scout and Scholar, and they're at each other like that. But
Oh my gosh! Oh,
it is
that's
really a joy to watch the two of them. And that's
Yeah.
one cool thing. I mean, there's not been one unfun person in this industry. I mean, if you go out, we talked about the Elijah Craig in the last segment. You go out and do a barrel pick with Connor O'Driscoll. He's fun. He's unfiltered. You know, Jody joined us for the one that we did, Mark.
right. Yeah,
There's not a bad experience out there. Every single distillery experience that I've had has been an amazing learning experience, but you also get to peel that layer back and see the personalities behind the juice. And it's all amazing. There's no wonder why it's such a good product when it gets
Yeah.
into the bottle.
that's a good point. And you're right. Any experience that we've been on has been fun. But yeah, the pick with you guys was just great. It was a fantastic experience there at Heaven Hill. So anytime you need another helper, I'm always open. So Matt, let's talk about this Maker's Private Selection, man. What are you picking up in terms of the nose on this one?
This one has a really elegant nose to it, is kind of the first word that really popped into my head. I think going heavy with the French influence on this one, the Siri Cuvée and the 46 and some of those French staves really shows there's a lot of like red wine fruits, a lot of dark stone fruit, kind of this elegant floral note that comes across on it as well, kind of like a light springtime floral note, but just really, gosh, just really, really, really nice. I could legitimately just sit here and nose it all day. It's so pleasant. The red wine fruits, the dark cherries, the dark orchard fruits, that light perfume, floral note, a little bit of the oak and some sweetness in it as well. Just very, very nice.
Yeah, it's funny, Matt, because you were talking about the floral notes, and it reminds me almost like when you walk into a florist shop. There's not one specific floral aroma that usually jumps out and says, "Hey, I'm here. I'm a rose, or I'm this, or I'm that." But you just get that combination of floral aromas from all the different flowers. And I really in this glass, I really pick that up as well. And you talk about the fruits and things. A lot of times on Maker's Mark, I'll pick up almost like a strawberry, red fruit. But I don't get that obviously with these finishing staves. I think, like you said, Matt, it kind of pushed it into that more the darker red fruits, things like that. So I don't pick that up. But yeah, the nose on this, like you said, very elegant, very enjoyable, very, very pleasant. So Randy, what about you? What other things you pick up on this?
Same thing. The darker fruits, the cherries, but I get just a hint of like the baking spice. I don't think it's quite cinnamony, but it's definitely in that same kind of like your baked
Yep.
cherry pie kind of a. And
Yep.
and I've been thinking, did I said French Cuvée, right?
I think
Yeah.
you did.
Not to be mistaken with Couvray, because I think Couvray is the bald spray, right? I just wanted to make sure I didn't mistake.
The
People
French
are
bold spray, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're like,
yeah.
what the heck is he talking about? Couvray, no,
Yeah.
French Cuvée. I thought I said it right. I just want to clarify.
Yeah,
But,
that
I love
doesn't.
this. And
Yeah.
this is one of my favorites, and I take away the different distilleries and the brands, but partly because of the connection being a part of the pick. It obviously, when you know the people behind that, but this is one that I was really, I'm going to be sad when this one's gone, because then I'm down to just my little 100 ml lab bottle with a little bit of bottom. But I
Hey,
feel like
Randy.
there's definitely a heartstrings connection to this, in addition to the wonderful aroma and the finish.
I've been pacing myself on this one. So, if you do run out, you can crack that Elijah Craig that you were talking about, and I'll bring this and we'll swap.
Well, and I kept the other one. This was the other one we did with Makers, and it's signed by Denny and Jane.
Oh,
obviously,
yeah.
Before they left, I've got a case of those left because I'd like to do something special for our 35th anniversary in a couple of years. But
Oh, cool.
Oh, yeah.
we will always have a few of those that we can tap into when the mood strikes us.
Yeah, very, very nice. So, Randy, let's go back and talk just a little bit about the festival. I mean, it's in the 32nd year. You're talking about the 35th, but I mean, so it's been around for a long time.
Right.
Can you talk just a little bit? And you don't have to go through the whole history of it, but I think it would be good just to kind of let people know how it started,
Sure.
and then how you talked a little bit about how it's changed, but just kind of touch back on that a little bit to where we are now.
Well, and the amazing thing is it's Bardstown, it's small town, one of the most beautiful small towns in America, very approachable, just friendly.
Yeah.
But if, depending on who you're talking to, everybody has some kind of a connection to someone who claims that they're one of the founding members of this festival. And having been involved with the festival industry for much of my adult life, the failure rate on a new festival is usually around 3 to 4 years. If you get it past that 3 or 4 year, then you're usually pretty much, you've got your roots established and you can kind of go. This festival has done that, and kudos to every single person who's ever put this event up on their shoulders to make it go forward. And it wasn't always easy. And this industry has changed more probably than any other industry with a festival connected to it. If you look at the 32 years ago, the distilleries, Fred Noe will talk about this, and Eddie Russell will talk about that. They weren't giving the stuff away. I mean, it was just not cool. And this renaissance has happened. And I give a lot of credit to the Steve Nally and the Fred Noe and Booker Noe, certainly, and Jimmy and Eddie Russell and,
Sure.
Kyle and Wes Henderson, what their families have done, and Bill and Rob Samuels. So this festival really kind of started off as just a couple of the Gold guys getting together and drinking their whiskeys, and people started gathering around them, and they started figuring out, well, we've got a lot of wealth of knowledge in distilling right here around Bardstown. So it kind of grew, and people started staying the night and kind of doing these little one-off events. And I'm a parent of 30 plus year olds. I'm ashamed to say now. It's like a child. The first 10 years, it's kind of getting itself, and then it gets into its rebellious teenage years, and gets to the 20s and starts to grow up. And by the time you're 30, you better know what you're going to be doing for your life. And the festival followed that very similar timeline, where it tried to be too many things to all people, and they weren't doing much of that stuff to the maximum potential. So when I came in, I'm literally taking a 29-year-old and saying, this is career planning. You better figure out what you're going to do.
Right.
And so here we are, and we hit it. We pressure tested, as David Mandel will say, every single piece of this festival against our new mission and vision, which was putting, it's bourbon education, certainly, but it's about whiskey and the people who make it. If it didn't have to do with that, then it went away or became secondary. It's nice to haves and the must haves. And so the car show and the hot air balloon glow and the golf tournament and the pancake breakfast and the different dances and all of those kind of things were fun things to have, but they weren't must haves to make this thing what the distilleries have told us that it needs to be. So all we did was listen and then execute on a plan that basically gave everybody what they wanted. So it took us a few years, but I feel like this festival has matured and kind of knows what it wants to be when it's growing up. And I'm just proud to be the one that's kind of moving along into that direction. And we've not had one distillery. I mentioned earlier in the first segment about our growth. We've not had one distillery that has participated back down and say, no, that's not for us. In fact, every single one of them has agreed to a multi-year contract. So they're investors. Wow. I mean, I sold it to them as investors. You told me this is what the festival needs to be. Then I need you to come to the table and help drive that. I can't do it if I've got to go out and resell the concept every single year. So this year is a renewal year, and distilleries are reaching out to me. And this is unheard of in the festival and sponsorship world. Distilleries are saying, hey, this is our final year. We want to re-up and extend this thing. So that's validation that we've all collectively heard what the industry and the consumer wants. And it's simple. We just put them together and let it happen. And I'm pretty proud of that.
Yeah. Well, you guys have done a great job. Matt and I were there last year for Friday and Saturday. We could not go back on Sunday, but
Why not?
We might have overextended ourselves a little bit.
Saturday, we might have overdone it just a touch, but we had a great time. And the festival itself is just, it's second to none. We've gone to whiskey festivals. We've gone to different festivals around Kentucky and other places. And what you guys have put together is it's phenomenal. And it's really cool the way that it's set up. And you said this year you said 56, is that right?
56 distilleries, and for the first time ever, we have a waiting list of distilleries that are kind of out on the bubble that we run out of physical space. I mean, we just,
Right.
without doing something that it's too late in the planning in the year to start looking at growing into other areas or out onto the streets and things like that. You know, the city hall is right there. We've got the school next to us, and a lot of traffic considerations that if it was a single day event like a craft beer festival, we would have doubled the space, but we're not. We're a multi-day that we have to be sensitive to the community and the neighbors around it. And so we thought it'd be better just to put a waiting list out there and then start right now. I mean, we're already looking at 2024. You know, I joked about the Derby
Yeah.
150 earlier, but I mean, it really is that even though we're a small and nimble vessel and we can move pretty quickly and redirect like we did during the pandemic year, where many of the larger festivals just canceled because they knew they couldn't move in that space. So, but we still have to. We've gotten to the point now where we're having to bring extra resources in, like Stacy. And you know, I can't do it by myself anymore. The first couple of years was the Randy show with a lot of talented people available in the network, but now I'm having to build the actual core team up a little bit. So again, another sign of success. I'm not complaining, but
Right.
we have to know when the test is over and put pencils down and put that on the list for something that would be fun to do next year. But we're at that point now that we're landlocked and but I mean, if you think about 11 distilleries in 2019 and 56 in
Wow.
2023, and
Sure.
consistently half of those every year are the craft distilleries. I mean, they're innovators, as you know, and they're
Right.
forcing the big guys to innovate. You know, so it's fun
Sure.
to see it all come together.
Yeah, and I like that, you know, last year because you walk in, it's a great entrance, it's really cool, and you walk in, and the craft distilleries, we're over on the right side as you walk in, and the big guys, you know, the heritage type of distilleries, the bigger guys were on the left side, so they were kind of separated, but it was a great way. You could walk around, spend time in the craft area, talk to all the people there, and that's a really cool thing for us is the fact that you get to talk to people. I mean, these guys are there. The distillers are there. The master distillers, people are there. You know, I mean, Trip Stimson is serving me bourbon slushies at the the barrel craft. You know, I mean, he's there doing this work, and there's all these people around, and it's a lot of fun. And you can't get that kind of experience and access to people anywhere. I mean, you just can't.
No, and that's a great point. And I've tried to explain that to people. I spent a lot of my early years as a concert photographer and actually producing music festivals. And so what I liken this to is giving our ticketed guests kind of a backstage pass
Yeah.
to see the stars, the icons. And you see it. I mean, Brent Elliott walking across the lawn this way, and then here comes Fred No and Chris Morris walking this way, and all of a sudden here comes Rob Samuels across to see what's going on, and then here comes Dan and Andrea from Michter's, and it really is that kind of a thing, and they all get along so well. They have fun together.
Right.
And, you know, they compete for every little quarter inch of retail space on the shelves, but they're whiskey makers. They love each other's product. They love talking, and you know, the industry, they're the first ones. If one of their competitors breaks down, there's two or three others that are offering parts and labor to help make sure they stay online. And there's nothing like it. And it's so amazing to be able to be a part of that, to showcase that collaboration, that spirit.
Yeah.
Fun and
Yeah.
that-
That's a really good point, Randy. I think this festival too, for me, like really showed a lot about how the industry cares for each other. Just to see master distillers drinking at each other's booths and excited about other people's products and not just talking about their own, but saying, "Hey, have you been over here? Have you seen what they're doing?" Just like to kind of dispel this myth that it's also cutthroat and everybody's just trying to cut each other down and be the best. And there's hardly any of that in this industry, and everyone is in it together. And it's so cool to see and just get to interact with everyone. And it's just a great festival with great friends is kind of what it all seemed. Everybody
Yeah.
just having so much fun together.
Yeah, and I mean, we tested this during the pandemic year. I mean, it was this time of year, and we said there's just no way we can put on an event. It's not going to be safe. The master distillers were being pulled back, so we went to the virtual, because Steve Coombs and I had already basically had 16 educational sessions lined up with master distillers. So we just pivoted. Instead of doing it live at a festival, we did it in a controlled kind of a studio, and we had Connor O'Driscoll and then Danny Kahn, you know, on the couch together talking about the distillation process. And you put Wes Henderson and Rob Samuels together to talk about growing up in a multi-generational whiskey family, and over Heaven Hill and Maker's Mark and Jim Beam and Wild Turkey. And they're just having fun. And we get to be an audience that captured that. And if anybody's interested, our YouTube channel, the Kentucky Bourbon Festival YouTube channel, has all of those from 2020 still there. And then we've added to it with the Bourbon 30 show that we do each year at the festival. So if you want to see that collaboration, so we tested it where we purposely put two competing brands together on stage, so to speak, and let them talk. And it was just fun to let the camera roll and capture all of that.
Yeah, they're great. And Steve did a great job. He does a great job with that. Also, the live sessions, I mean, it's just great. Very educational. I tell you what, let's jump back to the whiskey and we'll take a break real quick. But Matt, let's talk about the palate and the finish on this Maker's Mark private selection. What do you think?
So I'm just thinking back to the festival the last 2 years, 2021 and 2022. Both the days I happened to be there were pretty warm out, sun beaten down pretty well, pretty humid, just a nice warmer September day. And this is, to me, like a really great bourbon for that weather. It's nice. It's fruity. I pick up a lot of like strawberries. There's a crispness, kind of like rhubarb almost. Like, to me, it kind of tastes like a strawberry rhubarb pie. There's kind of that pie crust in there. Nice, elegant, dark fruits as well. Influence from some oak on it too, but it's not overpowering. Not those super pungent or astringent like oaks and tannins and leathers and really old tobacco type flavors. This is like just a really good summertime drinking bourbon. Just really, really, really good.
Yeah, it's funny, Matt, because I was talking about strawberries, right? And I was like, oh, I don't get that on the nose.
Yeah, they're definitely on the palate.
As soon as I took a sip, I was like, oh, there's the strawberries from Maker's Mark, which I get a lot of times. So I was kind of surprised that I just said I don't smell them at all on the nose, thinking that they'd be hidden underneath the staves possibly. But no, they were there. But like you said, those dark fruits come through. There's some spiciness to this as well, which when you think of a wheated bourbon like Maker's Mark, you just don't think that you're going to get that spicy effect on your palate, but you do with Maker's Mark. The cask strength, for sure, I get it, but with this private selection, I still get that bit of spiciness. So it makes it kind of hard to say, yes, this is a wheated bourbon, because if you're used to a wheated bourbon, you think of that sweeter, creamier texture profile. You don't think of a spiciness, but this one definitely has it. But unlike the 94 proof Elijah Craig, this one does not drink at 108.9. I think this one drinks easier, lighter than 108.9. Like Matt, like you said, so a summertime drink. Floral, fruity, light, crisp almost, and almost a lower proof than what it actually is at 108.9. So Randy, what do you think?
Well, you probably see me smile when you said crispness because that was the word I was thinking of, but you don't normally think of
bourbon. Yeah.
Bright and crisp with a bourbon, but that's exactly what I picked up. And I'm thinking about just taking a Kentucky straight ice, one of the nice big blocks, and dropping it in more of this kind of like a mixer glass and enjoying it just by itself. Kate here in my house loves to make like the Kentucky mules. So I believe that she's made a Kentucky mule or two with this because again that crispness that only a ginger beer just helps kind of brighten it up even more.
Yeah, very very nice. I may have to try. My wife loves those, and she loves ginger beer. So we may have to give that a shot. So tell you what, guys, let's take a quick break. Let's get a word from our sponsors, and we'll be back with more with Randy Prosty, the president of the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, in just a minute.
The Stave Restaurant is a bourbon lover's paradise right here in the heart of bourbon country. Located at 5711 McCracken Pike in Millville, Kentucky, between Castle and Key and Woodford Reserve, Chef Kyle Klatka prepares amazing food each day that features an elevated Kentucky-inspired cuisine. With a full-service bar, great bourbon flights, and signature cocktails, the Stave is the perfect place to catch up with friends after a fun-filled day of touring the local distilleries. Be sure to check them out online at thestavekentucky.com or at Instagram and Facebook at The Stave Kentucky.
All right, everybody, welcome back for the third and sadly final round of the Bourbon Life podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me tonight here live in the Bourbon Life studios, it's my good friend, Matt. Matt, how you doing out there for round three?
Oh, Mark, morning, noon, or evening, I'm always doing great, especially when we get to Sad to get to round 3. But
Sad.
usually by the time we hit round 3, doing
Yeah.
pretty
Doing
well.
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
We could probably make like 6 or 7 rounds on this show, I think. You know?
Well,
If you're in overtime.
Yeah. Well, there's going to be a whole
Overtime.
festival about this show.
That's true.
So-
Yeah, there you go. That's right. That's a good point. So we do want to thank all our sponsors. Of course, we appreciate everything they do for us. We couldn't do the show without their help and their support. With that said, Matt, tell everybody who we have with us tonight.
Joining us back morning, night, evening, noon, whenever it is you're listening to the Bourbon Life podcast. We have the president of the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. He was a guest on episode 78 back in 2021, and we are so happy to have him back again. Randy Prossi. Randy, welcome back for our sad final conclude. Well, it won't be sad, but we're sad that it's the final round of the podcast here. So welcome back.
I'm just glad to be here. What episode number is this?
This is going to be episode 179.
So 100 episodes from now. Okay, I'm just trying to think. Put you on my schedule.
Yeah.
Well,
we
here,
got you covered.
you know, Randy, the bad thing is we actually had, because we had Steve on the show with you back on 78.
Yeah,
but
Steve
then
Coombs.
Steve came back. Yeah, Steve Coombs. He came back in December last year, and we did an episode all about country ham with Steve,
Oh yeah.
which was a
And then
lot.
I ended up curing a couple hams.
He
with
did.
Steve.
That's right, with Steve. That's
Yeah.
right.
I mean,
Yeah.
he is the expert. I mean, he's got the book to prove it.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right. No
And
doubt
he
about
actually
it.
he taught me or turned me on to bourbon, the whiskey and the food pairing. I'm kind of old school. I'll drink while I'm grilling, but I usually don't drink while I'm eating. And he's
Right.
totally cured me of that to where now I'm appreciating more than just a charcuterie, but actually the pairing. And we've done a couple of pairing, dinners with our distillery partners at the River House each year to kind of showcase.
Right.
So
Right.
I give Steve Coombs a lot of credit for a lot of the things that we do at the festival, but getting him or getting myself to think about, how you're pairing whiskeys with food, hams and the different fats and the cheese. And that it's all on Steve. So if Steve's watching and listening, thank you.
Yeah. Steve's a great guy. We love him. Appreciate that. And he turned me on to the prosciutto style country ham.
Mhm.
So from Kentucky, it's always been thick slice, throw it in the iron skillet and fry it up and eat it on a biscuit. And man, when he brought that thin slice prosciutto style country ham, it was like, it just opened up a whole new world for
It's
me, man.
life-changing.
So it really
Yeah.
is. And people just don't, when you tell people that, they're like, are you serious? I'm like, let me tell you, until you do it and have it,
Yeah.
you just don't know what you're missing. So
I've got
anyway.
50 pounds of ham hanging out back in my house right now, courtesy of the Steve Coombs influence.
I'm going to try that. I've been asking him a lot about how do I do that, and the
Yeah.
farm kid in me. I know my grandparents and great grandparents did that. on
Right,
farm.
right.
I've never
Sure.
done it. And,
Right.
but there's been two foodie life changers in my life. The first one was when I was still at Churchill Downs, and Chris Morris and I got to spend the afternoon out at Woodford Reserve, and he walked me through the flavor wheel, like really long before I ever thought I'd be doing this. I mean, we went there, and the honey and the cranberry and the dark chocolate and the almonds and then you taste and an opportunity to describe what I was tasting and watching his reaction. I went home and tried to recreate it. Oh my God, I had this amazing experience. And so that, and then you throw Steve Coombs, and you really can appreciate how this liquid really can complement and make your food more exciting.
Yeah. And speaking of liquids, we're going to talk about what we've got poured up for this third and final round. This is the 1792 Full Proof. This was also from 2021, the pick for the KBF. Man, I'm a huge fan. This was back when Danny, yeah, there you go. That one is signed by Danny Kahn, former master distiller. Now Danny has moved over to Buffalo Trace and moved up in the whole, yeah, Danny has moved up. He's still there, but I think he's over at the Buffalo Trace Distillery now, so no longer as master distiller with 1792. But man, this stuff, Matt, what do you pick up in terms of the nose on this one?
This one has a lot of similarities that I pick up on 1792, and I think a lot of differences that I don't usually pick up on 1792. Some of the similarities, there's a good influence from the barrel. You can tell this has gone in at a high proof and come out at a high proof. So not much influence from water or being watered down at all. Good influence from the oak and a nice kind of like vanilla wafer type cracker cookie aroma right on the front. But this one is also sweeter. I think kind of going along with our berry and kind
Yeah.
of fruited influence that we've had this evening. I pick up some savory berries on there as well, like a little bit of raspberry, maybe that cranberry you were just talking about, Randy. Like it has kind of that savory tart, but bright brightness to it. So which I'm not very familiar with getting on a 1792. Usually it's if people get fruit, it's like a banana or like even a melon sometimes, and I don't pick that up on this one.
Yeah. Good points, Matt. I get some like baking spice aromas on this one as well. There's some spiciness to it that comes through. That oak definitely comes through. I'm not sure. My notes I have on here, the age is somewhere between 7 and 8. Probably this isn't age stated, so I don't know for sure. So it's a nice in that sweet spot for bourbons in that 7-8 year range, most likely. 125 proof, doesn't nose super hot. It doesn't come across with a high alcohol content. We talked about Elijah Craig barrel proof earlier. A lot of times when you get in the 125 to 130-ish range, you take a good nose of that and you have to back up for a moment. This one doesn't do that at all. Matt, like you said, those dark fruits come through. Very nice. Randy, what are you picking up?
Well, and maybe it's just me psychologically, the banana bread, but for me,
Mhm.
it's like the banana nut cranberry bread, like maybe mom didn't put enough banana in there, but she overdid it with another half a cup of walnuts or something. But
Yeah.
like the baking spice, but I can definitely, I mean, the banana is there, but it's not as heavy and upfront as it normally would be on the other ones that I have here.
Yeah. So it's
But
kind of subdued, like the cherry we talked about on that
right,
small batch Elijah Craig. It's there maybe a little bit, but it's kind of subdued where you normally would get more of it. So
and this was a good one. It was 17 degrees out, and we went out there, and Justin Thompson had, I don't know if you've ever been on a pick with him in the winter, but he had this big Russian Cossack hat.
Oh,
And
nice.
we're out there in the warehouse, and it's an experience. It's rare now because of the way they've changed. But
Hmm.
it was so cold that we actually had to pull the samples and take it up into the visitor center to let it warm up for half an hour because we weren't able to nose, and it woke. It really came alive once we got it warmed up a little bit. But yeah, we're standing there kind of holding these little 100 ml bottles. Each of us had a bottle in our hands, trying to get it to come up to temperature. But no, it was a good one. It was one of the first ones that I had done. My very first one, other than that Maker's Mark we talked about earlier, we did a trifecta. 2 days in a row. I did a Buffalo Trace and a Blanton's on one day over at Frankfurt, and the next day drove over to 1792, and it was my first pick like out in the elements. Right, it wasn't
Yeah.
like a nice controlled room. And walking through that 1792, Barton's, it's like gritty chicken wire. You expect to see an animal running across in front of you or something out there, trip on a chicken on your way to do a barrel pick. But, this was a good one. It was just so memorable though that it was so cold out, and I grew up in Wisconsin, but for here, 17
Yeah.
degrees is pretty
That's
darn
cold.
cold, and we had to wait for it to warm up so we could get any kind of the nosing because it just was there.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. We did a pick at 1792. It was cold, but it
Mhm.
wasn't that cold. But that was the one thing that was very striking about 1792 is it's a very industrial type of, it's not, like the Buffalo Trace where everything's pretty and, and
Yeah, it's a
everything is-
production facility for sure.
it's a different feel.
Or in
Mhm.
contrast, you go to like the Freddie No Innovation Center,
Mm.
brand new, or
Right.
Bardstown Bourbon Company with the
Yeah.
glass and
Yeah.
the stainless
Right.
steel and the modern and the hard surfaces. And that's what made Barton so cool, was it was opposite. It was the original, the gritty
Right.
warehouse experience. And so if anybody missed that opportunity, and I feel fortunate to have been there on 3 different occasions, it really is something that people are missed out on, that part of kind of
Yeah.
the old school, like the way it used to be.
Yeah, for sure. So, Randy, a few minutes ago, you were talking about food pairings and things, talking about doing the dinners with your preferred partner distilleries, and you mentioned Bardstown Bourbon a few seconds ago. So let's talk about that because this year, you've got a. I don't think you're calling it preferred. You're calling it what the distillery is your
I
featured,
guess
like
it's just
featured.
the featured distillery partner.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
um, And yeah, I mean, 3 years ago, again, I'm selling a concept at this point. This is summer of 2020, mid-pandemic. I'm signing up distilleries for multiple years to really drive this thing. And I met with Mark Irwin, who at the time was the relatively new president out at Bardstown. And we went on a brief tour, and every tour I went on at that point was brief and very limited because of the way the pandemic was affecting it. And they were talking about the barrels that they put up, their own barrels that would be come for bottling this summer. And so he committed to donating a barrel for us right there on the spot. And that's kind of what we just here selected about 2 weeks ago. And so each year, starting with Makers, last year was Beam, this year is Bardstown. When they're the featured, they donate a barrel, and we do the pick, and we make sure our VIPs that come to the festival are getting them. So if anybody bought a Flask Force or the new Decanter Club VIP level, there's only 150 of them. Each one of them will get a bottle that we pick. The KBF bottle will be in their swag bag when they come to the festival. So
Gotcha.
And
last year it was Beam, right? So
it was the Knob Creek.
Yeah.
And Freddie was a part of it. So I mean, these are really, really cool experiences. I mean, all of our barrel picks, the master distillers or the main, the innovation people that are driving these barrel selections are on the pick with us. So there's always a little extra backstory on the KBF bottles when you see them versus maybe just a run of the mill. A lot of people get to do barrel picks, but a lot of times you don't get the master distillers. So I mean, Steve Nally was involved in this. Danny Calloway, Danny Bardstown, came by, and we had a really good. And they're all hands on deck. They're wanting to. They know the Kentucky Bourbon Festival crew is coming in to do a barrel pick. So we did that and had lunch and just had a cool experience. And so next year, Heaven Hill, Elijah Craig, Mark, they're our featured distillery, and then the year after that, Four Roses. So
awesome.
Back
Nice.
to earlier comments about how the distilleries get along. I've never had one distillery say, "Well, why does so and so?" You all get your chance.
Right.
We'll rotate it through. You will be celebrated. They get to pick and design the featured cocktail for the festival that year. They get to be the dinner partner that we feature at the River House, and they get this extra little love. So it really is a fun thing to be able to bring to people, because they get to see the full latitude of and the creativity that these distilleries are putting into one barrel that we're then bringing into a bottle, and you get a chance to enjoy like we are tonight.
Yeah, definitely. And the dinner, like you mentioned, that was great. I got to go to that this year. My wife and I came up, and that was a lot of fun over there in Louisville. So we really enjoyed that. And this year you also have a preferred podcast of the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. So we are thrilled to be partnering with you guys for that, Randy. Appreciate that very, very much. And looking forward to working with you guys this year for the festival and doing what we can, obviously, to help promote that and to spread the word, man. Because we just, after last year's experience, Matt and I were just super impressed with everything that's going on there, and people just need to know about it.
I appreciate that. And Mark, when you and I first started talking, again, that conversation that you and I had over dinner was very humbling. Very, you're very flattering to what we put together. And we've got a number of different media partners, but we've only got one podcaster that's at this level, and it's because you've got an audience that we want to be in front of, that we need to be in front of. So everyone listening, thank you, and and thank you to Mark and Matt for bringing us together to that audience. It really is, it's important, and we can't continue to innovate and be the event that we need to be without the feedback that we're getting from you as our partners, but also from your audience. So
yeah,
it made sense.
Well, we appreciate it very much, Randy. We're, like I said, looking forward to this, and we're honored as well to be part of it and to be your first preferred podcast. So we're really very thankful for that. We have
a lot of fun, don't we? Though.
Yeah.
I mean, this is serious business. We all take what we do very seriously, but man, if you can't have fun doing what we do, you're in the wrong line of work. So we've had a lot of good laughs off, unofficially. Yes. So thank you for that too.
Yeah, no doubt about that. So talking about the festival itself, it's not just walking around drinking bourbon. I mean, obviously you get to do that. You're going to have 56 different distilleries there. So there's a lot of opportunities, but there's a lot of other stuff that goes on in other events. You care to take some time, just tell everybody what they can expect and what they can look forward to at the festival this year?
Sure. Mark. Thank you. I mean, 56 distilleries, and we've estimated approximately 150 different brands and expressions and different SKUs. Again, we mentioned the sampling and direct bottle sales, but you get past that. We've got our main stage with the Bourbon 30 show. It's a half hour.
Right.
I guess just it kind of, Steve brings people up from the industry and different pairings of industry icons, and we sit and talk about it, but we record it. But the whole idea was inspired from Seinfeld when Kramer dug Merv Griffin's set out of the dumpster and set it up in his apartment. That was the spirit behind, that was the inspiration behind what you see at the Bourbon Festival. It's just kitschy 1970s Mike Douglas show, Merv Griffin, whatever you want to have it. But it's an interviewer, Steve Coombs, and 2 guests, and it's just fun. And it, we have some talking points for each episode that we want to do, but the guests really take it. So the fun thing is, if you talk about distillation, you put these 2 people together and you get one show. You put another 2 people on the same set and you get an entirely different show.
Right.
So that's fun, and that's included in the price of the 3-day package. And Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we continue to do these unique shows. Independent Stave has been a huge partner of ours since day one. So in addition to the always popular Bourbon Barrel Relay that happens on Saturday at the festival, where we've got all the different distillery teams that are competing for the title, we also have their Cooper is there on site and doing the barrel building, and it is an art form. If you've never seen a barrel raised, it's an amazing. It's just watching it happen. I've seen it 100 times now, and I'm amazed every single time. So I mean, that's going on. We've got multiple stages of music. The 2 things that we're probably adding this year. Every year we evaluate what we did really well, what we didn't do so well that needs improvement. And the 2 areas that we really identified internally, but the feedback from our guests kind of confirmed it, was we need better food. We talked about food earlier. So we partnered with the Louisville Food Truck Association. We'll have 12 to 14 of the top food operators out there at the festival. So I don't like to use the word food court because we're not a mall, but it's called Bourbon Capital Bites. And you will be able to go as a festival attendee. You'll go out into the St. Joseph's Church parking lot, which is next door to our festival. We talked about being landlocked earlier. This is the one area that we could expand into. So this is a full-blown parking area that is being converted into a foodie area, dining tents, and all of the other good things. So guests will be able to go out there and do that. So that's our number 1 initiative. And the number 2 was to continue to figure out what works well with bourbon. And we know cigars, right? So cigars and bourbon, some people really love it. It's a polarizing topic. Even the distillery industry themselves, some really align with cigars and the other ones want to keep cigars 100 feet away from them. And but this year, the Kentucky Bourbon Festival Cigar Lounge is debuting. Angel's Envy is one of the distilleries that really embraces it. So they are the preferred distillery partner of the Cigar Lounge. So you have Angel's Envy doing neat pours and some amazing cocktails. There'll be a small stage playing music throughout the weekend. And we've got a couple of really cool cigar vendors that'll be there selling their cigars. And we're going to kind of wrap it all up into a big lounge area where there'll be, nice. The couches and all that kind of stuff. So,
wow.
Cool hangout places that we're creating.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's a cool space there too. I mean, everything's right there on the lawn. It's at Spalding Hall, right? I mean, that's
correct. Spalding Hall and neighboring Bardstown City Hall. So we got the mayor looking out his window at us as we build the VIP area and that craft distilling area that you mentioned, Mark, when you come in and you go to the right-hand side into the little, and it's tree lined. It's an old, if you haven't been, it's a mature park. The trees are there, and the street lights are there, and they're brick pavers. It's not out in the middle of a nondescript festival grounds. It really is connected to Bardstown and the downtown business, the community, really.
Yeah, and that was nice. Matt talked about it was warm last year, but you're in that environment where there's these big trees, there's a ton of shade, and you can escape the heat. I mean, it was so nice to be able to do that. just to get under a tree and hang out in the shade for just a few minutes. That was really nice. Now, speaking of Spalding Hall, I do have to say that you guys, that's the home base really for the Bourbon Festival. And you guys really, there's a whole new big upgrade to your office space here recently. You want to just talk about that real quick so I don't get in trouble with Stacy?
Oh my gosh. No, so I know you talked to Sam last week. No, I mean, this is something really cool. We were in that space since 2017. That's our year-round office. And we had an event space with a bar and some seating. And anybody who's been in there, it affords a really good view of the festival over that weekend. And it was our VIP penthouse. So you'd go up there and you would look out over the lawn. We outgrew it. We had one slow elevator, one restroom that was clogged half the time. The toilet, the air conditioning was window air conditioners because it's a 220-year-old building that we're in. So we last year we debuted the new VIP down in in an air conditioned, climate controlled tent. But what we've done with our third floor space is made it into classroom space. So if you are coming into what we call a premium education session, limited to 26 people, very focused, authors, chefs, mixologists. So there's a little bit more of an immersive experience up there. Takeaways in a lot of cases, if it's a cook or a chef with a cookbook, you get that and those kind of things. But that really, it's the Brindiamo penthouse. Jeff Hotmeyer donated a lot of money, $175,000 renovation that we just unveiled on National Bourbon Day. And so that's the kind of the new environment for all of our premium education. And it is our year round. And I'm sure Sam and the other folks are excited about it's the Bourbon Guild's home clubhouse. And Mark, you were up there last Saturday for Stacy's 50th birthday bash. So there's a lot of really cool uses for it, but it is our year-round office. It is something that I kind of walk out the door in the middle of December and kind of look around, and again I'm reminded about how fortunate I am to be in the bourbon capital of the world, to be in this amazing space, this historic building. And I look out those windows and there's snow on the ground and the leaves are gone, and I'm envisioning what it looks like that third weekend in September. And
nice.
But it's very cool.
Yeah, very, very nice. Well, it's a beautiful space, and that's really awesome. You guys have that in the premium education. That sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. So before we talk about the packages and the tickets, let's jump back to the whiskey real quick, though. Talk about the 1792 Full Proof. Matt, what do you pick up in terms of the finish, the palate and the finish on this one?
I get a nice sweetness right up front, like a nice honey. Then it leads into actually like a crisp apple. I pick up some apple taste on this, and that cranberry again is there. That tart berry, kind of like that lip smacking tartness with it. Then a nice long oak finish with it. And I pick up like rye grain spice from the actual grain of rye, not like a baking spice or a cinnamon, but just like that rye grain flavor that really brings some spice to it as well. Just really, really nice, really lovely.
Yeah, this may be one of my favorite 1790. I might put this up against our pick that we actually did. It's different, but I really, really enjoy this one. Just like Matt, like you said, to me, the rye grain, it comes across more like a pepper to me, not necessarily the rye grain, but that nice heat that comes through, but it's not like burning heat. It's just that nice sensation, like you have black peppercorn on your tongue. But those other flavors that you talked about, Matt, come through as well. So very, very nice overall. Really, really enjoy it. And again, 125 proof. Again, man, this one doesn't drink to me like, I think of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, which is my favorite. But I admit that, yes, sometimes it's hot. You get that 125 proof point, and it really is going to set you back a little bit. But this does not do that. So, Randy, what do you think? How about you?
That's the fun of this, right? You have a high proof. We had a 127 proof Old Foe that was way smoother than that. And then you get one that's a 94 proof Elijah Craig that you mentioned, kind of fighting outside of its weight, and it feels more robust. This one, that banana nut bread nose for me goes away when I sip it. And it actually, and I don't know if it's because maybe it's our third or fourth one tonight, but it almost has, it's like almost a dry on the finish.
Yeah, it is a little tannic. Yeah.
Yeah, and I pick up like the pepper. I'm thinking like more like a white pepper, not the heavy black pepper, peppercorn kind of a finish. But the banana nut bread nose that I picked up on goes away in favor of more of the dry, but a little bit the rye spice that you mentioned is definitely in there.
Yeah, it's funny because you're talking about the drying effect, and usually I don't like that on a bourbon, but this one is not it's not overwhelming. It's just a slight bit of drying. It's a nice. It just accompanies the flavors that are there really nicely. So I really enjoy that. So Randy, let's talk about the packages, tickets, things, so people can know what you have available, what's out there, what they can look for, and what they can get.
Well, we were so humbled at the beginning. So our tickets went on sale to insiders. For the first time ever, we've offered insiders opportunities to buy for a discount. Our VIPs sold out in 3 minutes. And you might think,
Wow.
and I strategically put 8% of our overall capacity out for VIP, 8%, because I've always believed that if everybody or every other person you encounter is VIP, then you're really not that special. And
Right.
I really want our VIP experience to be something special. There were people last year that gave us feedback that we sold too many. We had too many VIPs. So this year we cut back, and those same people are mad because they didn't get a chance to get on the VIPs. But welcome to my world. It's a delicate
Yeah.
balance. But we really wanted to feel like it's something you're in an exclusive club. There's only 100 of what we call the Flask Force. So Jacob Bromwell, the Flask Company, the only event that they sponsor in the entire world is the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, and they are our partner. So everybody who's in the Flask Force gets a handmade pewter flask this year, new to their line. We started a decanter club this year. So there's 50 decanter clubs. So Glenn Caron, who's our amazing partner on all of our glassware, we came up with a decanter with 2 glass set that the 50 people that got in and got the decanter club will get that. They'll get all the other assets that you would, and then you also get included in our distillery showcase events. And we were talking earlier about what else is there to do. You can come in and have your sampling experience, or you can choose to a la carte, kind of elevate your experience. The Great Tent has a number of distilleries like Beam, Bardstown Bourbon Company, Brown-Forman. We've had Rabbit Hole, Michter's, Blanton's. They do kind of an elevated catered event. This year's Decanter Club members get that. So those are off the table. So sorry. Watch your emails for next year opportunity. We're trying to figure out a way to expand it. But what is still available is our 3-day the Bourbon Tasters. So it's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, noon to 6, and noon to 4. It does include all of your sampling, a lot of the musical entertainment and things that we talked about earlier. Those are still available, but very limited. We've sold out the last 2 years and anticipate by mid-August being sold out again. Those are $175. So if you do the math and split it down between 3 days and 150 to 160 different brands and expressions, it really is a pretty affordable. And then if you're in the area, not necessarily looking at traveling and doing all the hotel, and you really want to kind of stick your big toe in the water and sample us, we do a single day Sunday sampler ticket that is $95. And it's noon to 4, but it's the full blown festival. All the things that you would maybe experience on Friday and Saturday, you can also experience on that Sunday. So we've seen a lot of people, especially people that are driving range, that don't want to commit or don't know if they want to commit. They'll come in on a sampler last year, and then they're buying the 3-day this year and bringing in some of their friends. So there's a $175 3-day or a $95 single day Sunday that are still available, but we do expect both those levels to sell out again. We will not have tickets available at the door. So if this is something you're mildly curious about getting into, I would recommend get your tickets. And I don't think we've heard anybody disappointed. Nobody has ever said they won't come back. In fact, a lot of people are saying, "Oh my God, this is so cool! I'm going to call my buddies that missed out and didn't make the trip and bring them in." So we got 48 different states represented right now. Last year we had all 50 plus a number of Canada, UK, Asia. So I'm just looking this morning at just our United States domestic, and we've got Hawaii and Alaska and everybody in between. Obviously, Kentucky is the number one area. So, and then you drill down in that, there's a lot of people in Bardstown and Nelson County. The locals that are really bourbon enthusiasts. But as you can imagine, Kentucky and all the states that are touching are the top 5. And then you get into Florida and Georgia and Texas and California have all been very strong for us. So it's pretty cool to see that all play out.
That's awesome, Randy. So, just where can people find information about the tickets and where can they purchase those?
Our website is kybourbonfestival.com, and Tixar, Tixr, is our box office partner. Most of our social media, so if you go to at KY Bourbon Festival or hashtag KY Bourbon Fest, Instagram and Facebook, if you see our posts there, that usually directs you connects right to the box office, so you can see what tickets are available. And but I would definitely recommend following us on social media.
Yep.
And subscribe on our website to the newsletter, the e-blast as we call it, because 2 years ago we had 4,000 insiders, and this last year when we went on sale we had over 27,000 people, and those insiders are the ones that
Wow.
that's kind of the feeding frenzy, snatched up all those tickets, and a fair amount of the 3-day tickets at a discounted price also went that day. So
Yeah. That's awesome. So what does the future look like for you and for the festival?
The cool thing is that we're fine tuning the actual distillery and consumer relationships. We're making sure we're staying on point. And I won't say this necessarily publicly, but in this Among Friends group, I think the consumers that are, the enthusiasts that are listening would get this. The consumer is always right, and we always care about what they say, but the distilleries are the ones that we're really focusing on. And
Right.
I use the analogy of Churchill Downs, that all of the fanfare and the sponsorships and the television contracts and all those things that generate millions of dollars for Derby, if you don't have the 20 horses in the starting gate, or 18 as it was this year, if you don't have the horses in the starting gate, you don't have the Kentucky Derby. And in this case, with the Bourbon Festival, our horses are the distilleries. So
Yep.
I always believe that if we take care of those distilleries and we keep them happy and we keep them sending their A team, their master distillers, and if they're invested in what we're doing, the consumer is the beneficiary of that. And so that's kind of my approach on this. So I don't know. I mean, the future is strong in the craft brewing. 10 years ago, I assumed there'd be some kind of a plateau, right? And it did. The plateau hit. The big distilleries or the big breweries started buying out the small craft breweries. That hasn't happened in the distilling, in the spirits industry. It just keeps going up, and we hope to not only keep pace with them, but we also want to try to stay one click ahead to make sure we're innovating and we're creating the forum that the distilleries would never think of missing. And then that, I guess, end result back to the consumer wins. You and I win when the distilleries are there and bringing their A game.
Mhm.
Yep. That sounds great. So, Randy, before we wrap it up, we're at the end of round 3, and I'm sorry that we've kind of kept you long. I've actually had to pour up a whole nother pour of the 1792.
Well,
foolproof,
darn it, I'll have to join you then.
just
I
to
can't
get
have Mark
myself,
drink alone.
just to get myself through the end of the show here, Randy. But so, anything else you want to add before we wrap it up and send it home tonight?
No, and we've taken breaks and we've thanked sponsors and partners that bring this show to life, and I feel the same way. I mean, our festival is funded almost entirely on the backs of the distilleries and the industry. So we have the engineers and the architects and the construction companies and those industries that are just connected directly to. So we don't get a lot of the gutter helmets and the siding companies and second mortgage and insurance people come sign up kind of stuff that you would see at the county fair. So I would like to thank all of the distilleries and the sponsors that have not only given me their investment and their confidence, but they're staying on. The Cutter Group, Cutter Construction, they just came on as the new presenting sponsor for the next 4 years. So that's a significant financial investment in what we're doing with our programming, but also kind of a vote of confidence after 3 years of offering this programming that we're going in the right direction, and those kind of things will help keep us there. So, and you and Matt, you'll see when you get there, we've got an entirely new media hospitality venue.
Okay.
Fully sponsored, Northern Kentucky Tourism and the Beeline. New Riff obviously is involved in that. So you'll come in and have a 40 by 40 air-conditioned, climate-controlled venue with flooring and carpeting and your own bar and your own catering and a lounge area and an area to do interviews if you choose. Stacy will be bringing all the master distillers and the icons of the industry through that area, and that's just our show to you and the other media partners how important you are to what we're doing, and you're telling our story and you're helping influence people to to come visit the bourbon capital of the world every September. So thank you.
Well, you're very welcome, and thank you, Randy. Really appreciate that. Matt, final thoughts before we wrap it up, man.
Randy, I know you've got the countdown on your head for how many days until we get there, probably for a different reason than Mark and I are counting down how many days until we get to the festival. But we really did. Mark and I had such a good time last year. We weren't even back to the car yet last year, and we were already talking about how we can get involved this year and what we can do. And we are so happy and so pleased to be a part of it and to be back there and to have you on and to get to talk about the festival, and can't wait for it. Can't wait to see you there. Can't wait to see all the distilleries there, any of our listeners there, and just see everyone. We are so looking forward to it.
And thank you, Matt. And I've said probably the word you've heard me say most during this time together is humbling, and it really is. And I work really hard. I put everything in. I get choked up and I get goosebumps when I think about it. I put everything I have into producing this event, and I get 3.5 days to see it, and then I start all over again. So my joy is watching the people's expressions, whether they were here before and they hadn't been to this new version, or first timers, and just watching that excitement and seeing the smiles on the faces, and it kind of recharges my batteries. So thank you for sharing your enthusiasm about it. And I just say that I can't wait to see what you're going to think this year.
Awesome. Well, Randy, thank you so much for joining us, man. I appreciate it. I mean, you're one of the coolest guys in the industry. I enjoy getting to spend, I really do. I enjoy getting to spend time with you when we get to hang out and do stuff together. Just a very genuine, very humble guy. And you do great job at what you do. You got a great team surrounding you, but you're spearheading that, and doing a really great job with the festival. And like Matt said, I mean, we love it. And we were already talking last year about what we can do. And that was the impetus to get with you to say, look, we want to be involved. We want to be in, at a 90-degree angle with you. I mean, we want to go all the way in and be a part of this, because, we know where you're going. And I see this vision for what you have, your vision. And I've embraced that. I think Matt has as well. I think a lot of fans out there have, and they see what you're wanting to do, and we've embraced that. And just, the opportunity to be a part of that is thrilling for us. We're super excited about that, to be your preferred podcast and to help you guys do what we can to get the word out about the festival. And we're just really excited to do it. And like Matt said, man, I'm counting down. I cannot wait to get back there and just hang out and just have fun, because it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
And I look forward to hosting you.
Awesome.
It really is. I mean, you work all year round, and you hope that people enjoy it, and you see the faces, and I thrive on the energy that you're feeding me right now. So
awesome.
Thank you.
Cheers to that. All right. So Randy, thanks again for joining us. We really appreciate it. And thank you, our listeners. Like Matt always says, whatever time of day it is you're listening to us, morning and night, whenever it is, we appreciate you tuning in, checking us out, hanging out with us, spending some time with us. We really appreciate that. We do the show for you guys. We love it. And we hope you do as well. We really appreciate that. So we appreciate all of our sponsors as well, everything they do for us. Like I've said at least 3 times tonight, we couldn't do the show without their support. So I just want to say that again, because we really appreciate all that they do for us. We would love to hear from you guys. Please feel free to email us at thebourbonlife@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook at The Bourbon Life. You can join our private Facebook group, The Bourbon Lifers. We have some fun conversations in there, so we'd love to have you join us. And if you feel so inclined, please leave us a review on your favorite podcasting platform. And with that said, I'm going to wrap it up. Send us home with our tagline, which is, may your glasses always be full, and may you keep on living the bourbon life.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. Our mission at the Bourbon Life is simple: to share our passion for all things bourbon with you every week. And we'd really love to hear your thoughts on how we're doing. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at The Bourbon Life. You can also contact us by email at thebourbonlife@gmail.com. And you can always find us on your favorite podcast platform. If you have a moment, we'd love it if you would rate us and give us a review. So until next week, we hope your glass is always full and that you keep on living the bourbon life.